everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to make a sourdough discard red velvet cupcake with a lovely buttercream frosting, and then a gosh, I lost my train of thought. Oh, we are doing two types of grilled cheese. We're doing a spinach artichoke grilled cheese and then like an Italian BMT grilled cheese, because my husband does not like spinach artichoke. So let's start on our cupcakes. I do have my oven preheating to 350 degrees. So we're gonna mix our dry ingredients, our wet ingredients, and then we're gonna cream some butter and sugar, and then we'll mix it all together. So we are going to start out with 1 cup of all-purpose flour. You do not want to use bread flour for baking cakes because there's a lot of gluten, which will make for a denser, chewier cake. So 1 cup of all-purpose flour, and we're going to mix in 2 teaspoons of cocoa powder, and the cocoa powder with the vinegar reacts to make kind of a reddish hue, and then we'll also throw in some food coloring to give it a bit more of a kick. But traditionally, that's how red velvet was made, was mixing cocoa powder and vinegar together. There we go. So I got my 2 teaspoons of cocoa powder, and then we're gonna add in a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then I'm just gonna give this a quick stir to mix it up so that cocoa powder gets incorporated with the flour. And then we'll do our wet ingredients, and then we'll cream our sugar with the butter and eggs. Okay, that is about mixed. You can tell it's mixed up because it has a nice light brown color from the cocoa powder. Okay, for our next set of ingredients, we are going to add in a 1/2 cup of milk. I'm using whole milk, but you could use any percentage you wanted, with a 1/2 cup of sourdough discard. You could use active starter too if you wanted. I'm gonna give this a nice stir, just in case we have some liquid at the top. There we go. And then we are going to pour in 1/2 cup of sourdough discard. There we go. And shake it out. And then I'm gonna add in some almond extract. If you're allergic to nuts or you're not a big fan of almond, you could use vanilla instead. There we go. So I'm gonna add in a 1/2 teaspoon of almond extract. And then I'm going to give this a nice little stir so that it gets incorporated and kind of thins out our sourdough discard. There we go. Beautiful. And again, I'm using almond extract, but you could also use vanilla extract if you wanted. There we go. And all you need is a 1/2 teaspoon of that. Okay, so we've got dry, we've got our super wet. Now we're going to cream our sugar and our butter together. So we are going to put in a 1/2 stick or 4 tablespoons of kind of room temperature butter with, let's see, 3/4 of a cup, well, I got 3/4 of a cup, but a little bit over of sugar. So it's like 3/4 of a cup plus 2 tablespoons. So I just kind of go a little bit over 3/4 of a cup. And we're gonna put that in here with our sugar, and then we are going to start the creaming process. I'm gonna lift up my thing, got it in. Whoops, there we go. We're gonna cream our sugar and our butter 1 egg. You want your egg to be at room temperature. So I'm gonna add in my egg. And then we're gonna cream those together as well. So let me turn on. Nice. And then what we're gonna do once those are creamed together, we are going to add in the dry and the wet, but we don't want to overmix. If you overmix, you'll get a really stiff cupcake. So you want to have a nice light and fluffy one. So you don't want to overmix it. You're just going to mix it until they're just combined. Before we add in our liquid, we're going to add in a couple drops of red food coloring to our milk mixture over here. Now you don't have to add this if you don't want to, or you could use beet powder if you want a more all natural. But this is what's going to give it an extra boost of red, because the vinegar and the cocoa powder don't have as strong of a reaction, so it gives you a very muted red. So if you want a bit stronger color, we're just gonna add a bit more red here. Okay. Now, I'm gonna clear my spot over here so we have a little bit more space since my mixer's over here. We are going to add in our flour mixture and our wet mixture a little bit at a time. So we're not just gonna dump all of it in, we're gonna add half or like a third at a time. So, I'm gonna put my mixer on low, and I'm gonna add about a third of the dry mixture in with a third of the wet mixture. And then we'll add a third of the dry with a third of the wet. And then the rest of the dry and the rest of the wet. Okay. And then you don't want to overmix it, because again, if you overmix it, you're gonna have a nice stiff dough. So you want to make sure, this off, that it's undermixed, and then you're gonna just do the last bit on yourself with a spoon. There we go. Shake off, and you see I still left a bit of the flour in there because we still have to add in our vinegar and our baking soda first. But we kind of got to do like a science experiment where we get to mix together baking soda and vinegar, which will have a chemical reaction, which will mean it will start to fizz. So I'm just gonna stir it. You see it's a little bit chunky. That's what you want. You don't want it to be over mixed. You want it to be nice and chunky like that. Now for the last part, we are going to add in a half a teaspoon of baking soda with a half a teaspoon of vinegar. We're gonna let it fizz up, and then we're gonna fold it into our mix here. So we're gonna start with a half a teaspoon of baking soda, and then a half a teaspoon of white vinegar, which if you ever made those volcanoes, you know, the baking soda vinegar volcanoes when you were a kid, this is essentially what it is. There we go. It's gonna fizzle up. We're gonna give it a little swirl, and then we are going to mix all of this into our cake mix. And this is just going to help make it nice and fluffy. So a lot of times with cakes, you sift in the baking soda with the flour and salt. Here we're doing the baking soda and the vinegar together. So it can have that kind of reaction, which will also bring out the red color of the cocoa powder. We're just gonna fold this in nicely. Beautiful. Perfect. So now that we have that, that is our batter for our red velvet cake. I'm gonna grab out my cupcake tin. We're gonna put some cupcake in there and we're gonna spoon in the batter. Okay. We're gonna do red and pink. You know, I love how I'm like purposely making them every other color, but they're all coming out of this at the end. So we've got red and pink because today is Valentine's Day. So I'm making a little treat for our kiddos to have later. There we go. And then I'm gonna get a good kitchen spoon to scoop with. I find that these are easier to scoop with than my big silicone ones. And you're just gonna scoop it up. This recipe makes 12 cupcakes perfectly. So that's nice. You don't have to worry about having a huge batch of cupcakes. Unless, you know, it's like, unless you're having a party, you don't need a lot of cupcakes for your family. So I always, when I'm making my muffins or my cupcake things, I always try to make them be just a dozen so that you're not stuck with 24 cupcakes. There we go. We're gonna fill these guys up. I'm gonna first put equal amounts in and then I'll go over and then even them out. That way they all have about the exact same amount in. That way they will all cook evenly. You could also, sometimes the middle two cupcakes right there, they don't rise as well as the outer 10. So if you want to put a little bit less in there, then they'll rise up and be about the same as the other ones. They just take longer to cook because they're surrounded by all the other cupcakes. So they're not getting the outside heat. Scoop these up. There we go. Now I'm gonna go back over with my last bit and kind of even them out. And then I did have a couple droppage, so I will clean up my cupcake tin before I bake them, because if you leave this little drippage over, it will just burn on your cupcake pan. And it's harder to clean up once it's been burned down. So let's try to even these out. And you do want to make them try to be as even as possible. That way you'll have about the same kind of size dome on all of them. And this is going to be a little richer, denser cupcake because we used butter instead of oil. But I find that butter just has a much better flavor in our cupcakes and our cakes in general. I never use oil really when cooking. Let's try to fix that one. Oh, it's kind of... Okay. I'm gonna grab a paper towel and I'm gonna wipe that area clean. And if you have a little spillage like I do, just get a paper towel and wipe it, because you don't want that to burn on your cupcake tin, because then you just have to do more work later. Okay, let's pop these in the oven. We're gonna bake them for about 15 minutes at 350 degrees. And so I have my oven preheated. Always have your oven preheated when you're baking goods. And then never try to open it when you're baking. So I've got my cupcakes in. And I'm gonna set my timer. I'm gonna set it for 14, even though it needs about 15. That way I have about a minute to get there in time. So I always give myself a little wiggle room. And then we'll make our frosting in just a little bit, but let's start on our grilled cheese and then we'll head over for our frosting. Okay, so we are making two types of grilled cheeses today. We're gonna make an Italian BMT, kind of like the one you get at Subway. And then we're going to make a spinach artichoke, which is my favorite. That's the one I am gonna have. I love spinach artichoke dip, and so this is kind of like a hybrid grilled cheese. So we're just gonna put a little bit of butter in my saute pan. because we want to saute up our artichokes, some onions, garlic, and whatnot to get a nice tasty filling. So I'm going to turn it on and we're going to let the butter melt. Let me go to this side. Perfect. And then I'm going to mince up just a tiny bit of onion. I don't need a lot because this is going just to be for one sandwich. So I'm going to mince up, it's probably like 1/8 of an onion, but it's just a tiny bit because the onion will just add a nice flavor. You want to chop it fairly small because you want it to be about the same size as your garlic, not too big because you don't want to have big onion chunks in your sandwich. There we go. And then I'm just going to go over it really tight because I want it to be a nice fine mince. There we go. And let me grab out. We're going to just speed up the melting process. Okay, I'm going to add in my onions. And then we're going to put in some minced garlic. And you don't need much. It's probably going to be about 1/2 teaspoon, not too much. And we're going to let that cook up together while we prep our artichokes and our spinach. Let's turn that up, let it saute. And now we're going to do artichokes. I'm using artichokes that are preserved in oil. You can get these in Costco, but also just anywhere in your jarred section where they have like, you know, the pimientos and olives and whatnot, you can find artichokes there. And I'm going to use, it's about 2 artichoke halves. You don't need too much because remember this is for just one sandwich. You would double this if you wanted to make 2 or, you know, what, so what. And then I'm going to give it a good chop up because again, when you're eating a grilled cheese, you got to bite into it and you don't want to have a huge artichoke heart coming out. So I'm just going to give this a nice chop up so that I have some nice pieces without it being, you know, huge. There we go. Let's turn that side. Let's give it a little turn. Perfect. And then I'm going to chop up some spinach. And we're going to heat it in there so the spinach will wilt some. So you need just about, I want to say, a handful. It will shrink up a lot. And then I'm going to chop this one up. Just because I don't want to be biting in and then have a huge leaf come out with it. There we go. So I'm chopping it up into some nice, I'm going to take out some of these stalks. If you have baby spinach, would work even better because you don't quite have as much stalk on them. Give this a nice chop. But I'm very excited for this grilled cheese. I love spinach artichoke dip, but nobody else in my family likes it, so we never get it when we go to a restaurant. But I am very happy because this is a great way to kind of get that like spinach artichoke dip thing in a sandwich with crusty sourdough, so it's just as good. There we go. We got a nice sizzle on here. You want to just brown them up nicely so that they are nice and tender. So we're going to just wait until they've got a nice caramelized color to them. Then we'll add in our chopped up artichokes and our spinach. And we're just going to heat that for a little bit. And then towards the very end, we'll add in a bit of garlic salt, sour cream, and mozzarella cheese. And you just do a quick melt on it. And then we'll be able to load that up on our sandwich in a little bit. Okay. There we go. It smells lovely. I always think the smell of just sauteing onions or garlic, it just is smells so good. You always feel like everyone in my house will be like, oh, it smells good. What are you cooking? And I'm like, all I've sauteed up is onions and garlic, but they have the most delicious aromas. Okay, now we can see that we've got some browning on our onions and our garlic. So we are going to toss in our artichokes and our chopped up spinach. We've got a nice sizzle on them. Beautiful. I'm gonna just stir it around, and we are going to let them cook. I'm gonna turn down the heat just a little bit. We're gonna let them warm up until all of this spinach has kind of wilted down, because we want that liquid to come out. Let's chop up our sourdough bread. This is the loaf we made, I think, 2 days ago or 3. So these are the last 2 sandwiches I'm gonna get out of it. But we have another one going in the oven tonight, and we'll probably start on another loaf tonight as well. I'm always trying to keep sourdough going so that we have, I always have bread, because homemade sourdough is just so much better to use on grilled cheeses than store-bought. It's just more tender. You get a nice, better, like slice. Here we go. So we've got these for our 2. Delicious. Let me give this a quick stir. Beautiful. Okay. Now I'm going to add a bit of garlic salt. You don't need much, just enough to kind of season it up. It's a nice little sprinkling. Give it a stir. And then I'm gonna add in a squeeze of sour cream. It's gonna be maybe a little bit, we'll start off with a tablespoon and we'll see how. So that's about a tablespoon there. We're gonna mix it in, and I think I'm gonna add in the second one, but I just wanna make sure, I don't wanna put too much in. You know what? I think I just need a little bit more. So about a tablespoon and a half. So I'm just gonna add a squeeze more. So about a tablespoon and a half of sour cream. We're gonna mix it up. Beautiful. And then I'm gonna put in about a small handful, about maybe a 1/4 of a cup of mozzarella cheese, not much, because we're also gonna be putting some mozzarella cheese on our sandwich as well. And we're just gonna give this a quick stir. And this is the base for our spinach artichoke sandwich. So I've turned the heat off. We're just gonna let it sit there and warm up, and we'll put it on. So now we've gotta build our sandwiches. So I'll start out with my spinach artichoke, because we've got that one going. I'm gonna use room temperature butter, and I'm just gonna spread it on one side of each piece of bread. I don't butter my skillet, I just do it on the bread. That way it doesn't burn, the butter doesn't burn on the skillet. It just soaks up in the bread and gets nice and crispy. Okay, and I'm gonna put it down there. And then I'm gonna be using mozzarella cheese for my cheese on it. I'm gonna place it on here. And remember, my rule in making it is you don't want the cheese to overflow, because that will just burn on your skillet instead of getting nice and gooey. And burnt cheese doesn't taste good. So we play a little like origami almost, you know. So I'm put that on. Then I'm gonna pour on our spinach artichoke, melting this. This one's gonna be so delicious. Delicious. Put this in the sink. And then we're just gonna cover it with a little bit more cheese. So you see lots of cheese in it, but it will give you that nice kind of spinach artichoke dip with the crusty sourdough. So we've got our first one made up. Let's make up our Italian BMT for my husband. If you've ever eaten at Subway or gotten it, this is very similar to that sandwich. We're using ham, salami, and pepperoni with a mixture of mozzarella and provolone. So let's start with our slice of bread there. And we're gonna use up some provolone that I have, and then we'll use mozzarella. You wanna kind of stick with Italian cheeses for this, hence the Italian BMT. And I'm just going to peel it and make it kind of fork here. And then we're gonna thinly layer in our pepperoni, ham, and salami. So, let's open up this guy. You don't wanna overload it with your meat or it will, your cheese won't melt. So we're gonna put 3 slices of hard salami. And then we'll put in some ham. And we're gonna put in 3 slices of ham. And then we're gonna finish it with some pepperoni. And those kind of flavors worked well. I feel like the ham mellows out the bit of the spicy and oiliness of the pepperoni. And then you just have always delicious, I love hard salami. There we go. And here, oh, I can see one of my little ones. He always stirs at this time. I think I put him down right before we started. We're gonna use 4, but he always wakes up about 30 minutes after he goes down for his nap. I don't know if you guys can hear him, but he'll go back to sleep in a few minutes. Well, we did the butter. We need the cheese now. So we're gonna put our mozzarella there, and we're gonna put this. Oh, he's a little mad right now, but sorry buddy, your nap time is not over for like another hour. There we go. We're gonna put our mozzarella on. Now we have our 2 sandwiches, so I'm gonna turn my skillet on to about an 8, and now we're gonna work on our frosting for our cupcakes. So I'm gonna use my whisk attachment, and then I have a second bowl. If you use your KitchenAid a lot or do a lot of baking, I recommend you buying a second bowl because it is great to not have to scrub out in between, especially if I'm doing lots of cookies. Put it in there. So we're gonna put in 2 sticks of butter. You want softened room temperature butter when you're making your frosting. Otherwise, cold butter just won't whip up nice. There we go. And then we're gonna add in some almond extract. If you're not a fan of almond, you could use vanilla, but I love almond extract. So we are going to use 1 teaspoon of almond extract, and this is gonna give it a lovely flavor. I think it pairs well. So we got 1 teaspoon, and then we're gonna put in some pink food coloring, and we're just gonna whip this butter before we add in the powdered sugar. So I'm gonna put a couple drops of pink dye. Ah, silly me. There we go. I always just like to give it a little pre-whip before I add in my powdered sugar. So we're gonna add in, it's about 3 cups of powdered sugar, but I kind of just eye it as we go, so I don't add in too much because I don't want an overly sweet or stiff frosting. So I'm gonna add in 1 cup at a time. We're gonna let it mix. You're gonna wanna push it down. I hear our cupcakes beeping, so we will check on those. Let me push all of the butter and the stuff down. This will help it incorporate. There we go. And then I'm gonna add 1 more cup of powdered sugar, and then we will go grab those and see if they are done. So I'm gonna put my light on. And we're gonna check on them. They look good. Look at them, they all have a lovely dome. I'm just gonna give them a little touch. I see, I feel like they might need 1 more minute. They're a little squished, but I'm gonna rotate because the back of the oven tends to get a little bit hotter. So, I'm gonna put 1 minute on the timer. Then we can check on our things and our grilled cheeses. I'm gonna add a splash of half and half. You can do heavy cream too, or milk. This just helps you whip it up, and then I'm gonna add in my last cup of powdered sugar. And this will hopefully help it all whip up. We'll whip it more in a bit, but let's check on our grilled cheese. We're gonna do the first flip over. Now don't freak out because it's not golden brown yet. This is just to start to warm up the grilled cheese. Okay, we're gonna go grab our cupcakes out of the oven, but I'm gonna turn my blender on so you guys don't have to, or my mixer on so you guys don't have to hear it. Okay. Our cupcakes are done. And you know how they're done is if you touch on the top and your finger doesn't sink in. Those have a nice full dome. So I'm gonna pull them out. Turn it off. Beautiful. Okay. Let's check out our frosting here. I'm just gonna give a quick push down on all the sides because sometimes you have a little bit of butter that hides out on the sides. And then we're gonna just whip that up real quick. One more whip, and then it should be done, ready to go into our pastry bag. Delicious. If you have never tried almond extract in your frosting, try it. It is really, really good. I'm a really big fan of it. I think it pairs really well with the, let's do our second. Now we are going to be doing our flip for the color. So we're gonna toast each side one more time, but this is the color side. We just don't, I like to heat up both sides of the bread so that, and it warms up so that those cheeses can really start to melt in the middle and kind of get there melted because that meat keeps it cold. So it needs a little bit longer. Let's pull out our frosting here. Our nice, vibrant pink frosting. Look how pretty that is. Perfect for Valentine's Day. I know a lot of, it's very common in the US to serve red velvet with cream cheese frosting. Originally, red velvet was served with a boiled milk frosting, which I don't feel like anybody uses that anymore.
You have a question? How much almond extract did you add to the frosting?
I just added 1 teaspoon. So if you don't like almond, you could add vanilla, or you could do a straight up buttercream. But I think the almond extract just really, it kind of gives it that bakery flavor. Let's flip out. See how these are going. I think it's a little bit longer on each side. I want that nice golden crust. I am going to pop out one, and we are going to pipe onto 1 cupcake. Normally you want to wait until your cupcakes are nice and cool before you pipe on, because if you pipe them on when they're hot, the frosting will melt down to the side. So these are our red velvet cupcakes. You could add a lot more food coloring if you wanted. I added a bit just to punch it out, but traditional American one has so much more in it. But I find that the frosting covers it, so you don't need to see the whole. But we got a little bit. I'm gonna get my, where did my, here it is. I'm gonna get my pastry bag. This is for my frosting. You can always just slather it on, or if you don't have the piping bags, just grab a Ziploc baggie and scoop it in there. And, okay, good, perfect. And just use that instead. Run away. Okay. Now we're going for the last coating on that side. So I'm gonna pipe some or scoop some of it in here, and we'll use that. I never really use a piping tip. I just cut the ends. That's why I say a Ziploc baggie at home works great. That's what I used to use for the longest time. Now I have these in bulk because there's always some sort of event or something that I'm making cupcakes for the family for. You know, I have 5 kids and I'm one of 10. So you can imagine, there's just celebrations all the time. So we're gonna pop this in here. And a couple years ago, I was really big into cake baking. Now I like cookies over cake. I'm not a big cake fan. So I do that. We're just gonna push it down. I'm just gonna twist at the top.
We'll post some of the pictures from your old cakes.
Oh yeah, I'll have to go through and find them. Let me check, see how this is progressing. Beautiful. Perfect. That one needs a little more, so I'm gonna put him more on the middle. Oh, when I'm using my grilled cheese, if you don't have one of these, this is a fish spatula. It's like skinny and thin and long. It's perfect for flipping grilled cheeses, I find. Okay. So I've got my frosting in here. And then what I just do is, I've got to find a pair of scissors now. My scissors have always go missing for the kids, but I do have one over here. You're just going to want to cut the tip off. Have it in my craft bucket for my kids when I do school with them, my little ones who are still home with us. Okay, let's take these sandwiches off. We're gonna put them on our plate. This is our Italian BMT, which has mozzarella, provolone, salami, pepperoni, and ham, just like they do at Subway. And this guy right here is my favorite. Perfect golden crust on both sides. Spinach Artichoke grilled cheese. So just like the spinach artichoke dip you would get. And let's pipe up one beautiful cupcake to go along. So I just kind of squeeze it down. You want to twist the top if you've never done this, and then just slowly squeeze it down and work it. And then you're just gonna pipe. Beautiful, simple, easy, doesn't take much time. And then if you wanna be a little bit more bougie, if you have any, I would say this is like colored sugar, you can just sprinkle some on that. And now you have a perfect red velvet cupcake, which is perfect for Valentine's Day. Well, guys, thank you for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We try to do live cooking shows every single day for us. And also feel free to message us a recipe you might want to try or see us make. I have somebody who sent us they want to see chicken and dumplings. So I've got ingredients for that, and we'll be making that sometime this week. Thanks again. Don't forget to like and subscribe.